Andy, really interesting conversation this morning that we're having on the show here regarding trend toward podcasting. And I mean, I think it's a fairly obvious trend, but I'm impressed by how much it's grown as a result, even of the shutdowns as well. But it seems like it is really a trend that has taken a hold of really everyone across every demographic in terms of these long form conversations in the form of podcasting, in terms of how news and information is being digested by people all across the world.
Yeah, it really is. For this segment, LikeFolio looked at kind of a macro trend. How many people are talking about subscribing to a podcast or streaming a podcast, listening to a podcast, things like that. And what we found was, exactly kind of what you're saying, up and to the right, with a real acceleration over the last 90 days. In fact, up over 30% year over year. So compared to 2019, we're seeing an even bigger jump than the normal trend. And so I think that podcasting was on the rise. Again, this is something we talk about on this show all the time, is existing trends being accelerated by the COVID crisis and the lockdowns and people looking for different entertainment options. There's only so much, unfortunately, turns out there's only so much you can watch on Netflix. There's only so many times you can listen to the same songs over and over. And so a lot of people adopting podcasting. And, it's not just consumers adopting podcasting, it's marketers and it's platforms. When we see the amount of money and effort that Spotify is putting into podcasts, it's really quite unbelievable. They've been a leader in the space. They signed Joe Rogan in May to an exclusive deal. The stock has taken off ever since. This has been a LikeFolio favorite for quite a while because this is a company that has, stayed ahead of this trend. They really are forward looking and have done a really good job. And, we can get into it a little later. They've got big competition, but a rising boat or a rising tide lifts all boats. And, Spotify's definitely one in the best position to gain from the huge traction that podcasts and podcast listening is getting.
Andy, your data on the growth and popularity of podcasts, and Spotify has clearly gone all in, slid their chips all in the middle of the table with podcasts from, like you mentioned, Joe Rogan, Kim Kardashian, DC Comics. They've really got their portfolio growing. The question is this a growth? I'm sure part of this is the move away from radio towards podcasts. That seems to be the new trend. But are they cutting into Sirius satellite radio's profits? Is this part of growth and part of Spotify eating their lunch? Because the growth is in their stock, in the mentions. It's exponential and straight up. Is any of this taking away from their competition at Sirius?
Yeah, I think that it probably is, because now people, they have Bluetooth connections in their cars. A lot of people, that the reason that they liked SiriusXM was because in their car they could spend their whole commute without listening to ads. Well, with Bluetooth connections, which I know is not groundbreaking technology, but it's in more and more cars every day. And what that allows Spotify to do is to become that drive time choice. So I think that there definitely is some competition there. And Spotify is just the entire platform, the entire notion of on demand. You can kind of compare Spotify is to Sirius XM what Netflix is to cable TV or something like that. And so I think it's the next generation. Spotify doing a really good job. When we look at Spotify versus even Apple, the behemoth that has a phone in everybody's pocket, Spotify is winning the podcasting war. And that's pretty new over the last year or so. So what Spotify is investing in is really starting to pay off. They're in the right lane. They have the trend behind them, but they're also winning competitively.
Yeah, Andy, there's a lot to say about this. First off, the run Spotify has been on is absolutely incredible. The stock almost 2.5 times or more than 2.5 times higher than where it was just in March here. But a couple questions for you here, because as a former Spotify subscriber for the music on-demand platform, I actually switched to Apple Music just simply because Verizon had it included in my plan. And I got to say that the Spotify interface is a lot more user-friendly than the Apple interface is. And in the same boat, I can see why people seek out Spotify over Apple. I'm sure that reflects in your happiness. The problem is it's Apple, and Apple is a massive company. To your point, it owns the phone. It can pre-install different apps into the phone as you buy them. And so you're going to have to go your extra mile to get Spotify. But the question I have for you is more on Spotify's approach to these licensing deals that it is making with these powerhouses within the podcasting world, Joe Rogan primarily. I recently read something in a different space, but similar, about Microsoft's video game streaming platform Mixer. And it kind of took this approach where it was buying all the really popular people from Amazon's Twitch platform. Well, it recently basically just discontinued that platform altogether and is letting those different streamers, I guess you call them, go back to whatever they would like. And so it's not as easy as just buying universal access and the only rights to these different popular personalities. But it's probably a little different here because Spotify's already winning and they're almost just playing more offense with the lead.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I think, when you look back, SiriusXM did the same type of big moves when they got Howard Stern on. That really sparked what they did, and that paid off for quite a while. Netflix is, absolutely the leader in original content. And so I think that Spotify's following a pretty well-established playbook. There may be some discussion or debate around the value that they're assigning to some of these celebrities and the longevity of some of these. But, in the case of Joe Rogan, I mean, he pioneered podcasting in a lot of ways. He knows what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
His audience is extraordinarily loyal. And I did see one stat that I thought really interesting. A musician would need to generate 23 billion streams on Spotify to earn what they're paying Joe Rogan for his podcast rights. So if that tells you how podcasting is going, it's really, really well for those who can capture an audience's attention for 2 or 3 hours a day. The upside's unlimited.